Welcome back, everybody, to another video in the COE training series. We've got an awesome training for you. Today we're going to be talking about duplicates and duplicate detection and deduplication. We're going to split this up into two different sections. Our first section, we're going to be focusing on why duplicates happen and how they are introduced to the COE environment. And then our second section, we're going to focus on, okay, we have identified why these happen. We've identified where we can find them. And then we're going to focus on how we can actually fix a duplicate record in Dynamics. So everything that we're going to be doing is primarily in Dynamics, but we are going to talk a little bit about the portal and how they come from sections of the portal. So with that, let's dive straight into it. So first, let's understand why a duplicate happens. In a lot of ways, there's really nothing that we can do to eliminate the possibility of a duplicate happening. A duplicate can happen from a staff perspective. It can happen from a portal user. It can happen just because it happens and it wants to. And we know this fact. You know, there's only a certain amount of things that we can do and parameters that we can set to eliminate a duplicate happening. But there are a variety of different reasons of why they are created in the system. The first part, and arguably probably the most common, is a separate email, right? So we understand that from a contact perspective and from a portal perspective, the email is the most important piece of data. That's how they log into the system, into the portal. That's how we as staff log into Dynamics. Email is the most important piece of data that we have. So let's take an example user. Well, we've been, a variety of these trainings, we've been using the Weasley family as an example. So let's take Ronald Weasley. We bring his information over from GMS when we're onboarding to the COE, and we have a certain email for Ronald Weasley. It may be an old email, one that he used way back when he first started participating with Special Olympics. And now, a few years later, he has a new email that he primarily uses. We communicate about the launch of the COE and that our program is going to be using it. And he goes in and creates an account. Now, we already have a Ronald Weasley on file under a specific email at ronald@weasley.com or whatever the email is, but a specific email already tied to his contact. Now, 2 years down the line, Ronald comes in and creates a COE account on the portal using a different email. From the Dynamics perspective and from the system perspective, those are now two different individuals. There's Ron Weasley with this old email, and now Ron Weasley with this new email. There's no way for the system to understand that as a different person, right? You use a very common name, John Smith or Jane Doe, those are two different people, potentially, if they have two different emails. So what happens is another Ronald Weasley gets created. Now, from our perspective, those two Ronald Weasleys are the same person and not two very different people. So now, all of a sudden, we have two records of Ronald Weasley who, for all intents and purposes, have the same information outside of that email. So that's one of the first reasons that a duplicate gets created in the system. The user uses a different email than what we have on file already. Now, the second reason, and one of the big changes that we're making to the portal, is a coach creating an account for an athlete or a parent or guardian creating an account for their athlete on the portal without checking the system to see if that athlete already exists. Right? So on the coach portal or on the Circle of Care portal, they're going in to manage my participants and adding a new athlete for their son or daughter or for the athlete that they coach without first checking to see if that email or that individual already has an account. This happens a lot when we first get started on a program, working through the data, making sure the relationships are set. And we run into issues where a coach is adding an athlete to a roster without us or the coach knowing that this person already exists. So now, same thing with Ronald. Ronald already exists in the system, but he might not be related through a related contact relationship to the coach. And now we're creating another Ronald Weasley that are essentially the same person. Another reason, another way, and this is certainly not as likely, but we on the staff side, we accidentally create another Ronald Weasley manually from the back end, or duplicate his account through just creating him on a group. And now we have two Ronald Weasleys with two different emails or two conflicting sets of information in Dynamics that are, for all intents and purposes, the same person. So those are a few ways of them coming in. And that is primarily on the athlete, coach, parent, or guardian, the holistic idea of athlete registration, way of a duplicate coming in. Very similar to the coach and circle of care way, we also have the group member functionality for volunteers. A group lead is adding members to their roster for their group, and they're not first doing the account lookup feature or searching up an old email and adding a volunteer to their group that already exists in Dynamics. So now we have two Ronald Weasleys to volunteer instead of them just looking up the old email for the existing Ron Weasley. So really, to sum this up and sum up my rambling, duplicates happen really at the email level. The email is an essential key piece of data that certainly can change quite a bit, but because of that change, creates potential duplicates in the system, right? So with all that said, okay, we understand that duplicates come into Dynamics and the COE system altogether. So what do we do with that? And how do we first even identify that there is a duplicate in the system? A few different ways. Some simple, some a little bit more kind of deep diving into our data. But the most simplest way is just looking up somebody. Excuse me while I fat finger. One second. I clicked on things. This is why I shouldn't do trainings, because I just click on things and get off my flow. Okay. So the first way we can identify a potential duplicate is just by searching for somebody or stumbling across it, right? So we'll use the Weasleys, for example. Okay, great. We have got, sort this alphabetically. We've got 2 Arthur Weasleys. We've got 3 George Weasleys, etc. And this isn't going to be my best view of looking at it. So if you remember from our reports and dashboards, I'm going to add the email. Here we see there are 2 Arthur Weasleys in here with 2 very different emails. And I'm sure if we click into them, they're going to have very similar information. So here, just from even just searching, we can see all of the potential duplicates just by the name. So this is primarily going to be your first way of identifying a duplicate. You aren't necessarily going in and purposely searching for duplicates in the system. You're just stumbling upon it when you're going through contacts. You have a question about a specific athlete, you look up that athlete, and you just happen to notice that there are 2 of the same person. We obviously have to be careful and double check if they are the same person or not, but we'll get to that here in just a few minutes. Now the second way, and this is probably going to be more so where you're deep diving looking for specific duplicates in the system, there's actually already a built-in list view for duplicate contacts. So under our contacts area, we do our little drop down here and we go to duplicate contacts. Here in the system, it will pull a pretty substantial list of potential duplicates in the system. This is pulling on a variety of different data. One suggestion is, we already have the email here, just add it up here. One suggestion is that you have email on here and double check that the emails are right. Let's double. We can look at potential duplicates that are in the system. Again, the name might be similar, but the emails might be different. And this list view here is pulling on a variety of different data. We look at things like email, similar first names, similar contact reasons, birth dates, all of that. So this is really focusing on a variety of different data. So it might not, every contact in here might not actually truly be a duplicate in the system. Which again, and I'm going to mention this many more times, is double checking our records to make sure that they're truly duplicates in the system. Now, our third way of identifying them is through our duplicate contacts tool and report that we can find within configuration. So going to configuration, going to our duplicate contacts. This is going to pull a very similar view to what we were just looking at with duplicate contacts as a list view. But now we'll report it in a little bit different and pull just some specific information based off of the information that we have. It's going to load a little bit because I've got quite a few duplicates in here. It's loading a lot slower than I want it to. Okay, so very similar. This is going to be a list view of potential duplicates in the system. Here we can search. Here I'm going to look at duplicate emails maybe. Let's look at this. We've got multiple ones with the same email. Carrie Underwood is a good example. Let's pull this one up. So if we open up one of these, this will tell potential duplicate related contacts and conflicting related contacts. And we'll show this when merging a record, but we have to make sure that there's not any other conflicts with data in the system. We want to make sure that Carrie, if we remove her from the group, it's not conflicting with another group, and that we make sure that that group relationship is set at its highest level before we merge an account. So this is another way of understanding and kind of segmenting potential duplicates in the system. Now, these last two ways are primarily going to be for those that are keeping up with duplicates. And there's another way that we can pull a more detailed report and work off of that. But we typically handle those case by case with the COE team. And any of us can help you pull a report based off of specific metrics that you're looking at. Now let's go back to our contacts area and let's talk again about kind of the more natural way of identifying a duplicate. So let's bring back our Weasleys here and pull up Arthur. So we've understand that Arthur is potentially a duplicate in the system. Let's open up this Arthur Weasley. Now let's take a look at his contact. Okay, this one has been getting emails quite a bit. And we're going to go ahead and make the assumption that this is the Arthur Weasley that we want to keep. When I'm in here, it's not exactly telling me that there's a duplicate. So if I put something in like the staff notes, this is our master contact. This is the contact that we want to keep. And then whenever I click save, it's gonna tell me that there's a duplicate in the system. So anytime we try to leave a contact that might be a duplicate, this screen is going to show up for us. And it's going to say, hey, there's an Arthur Weasley here, and there's also an Arthur Weasley here. And it's going to ask us if we want to do the merge process, or we can ignore it and just come back to it later. Now, from a process standpoint, I definitely recommend if you find a duplicate, either manage it right there and then, or reach out to somebody at your program who is responsible for deduplication and let them know that, hey, there's two Arthur Weasleys, or insert whatever contact that we want to take care of. So let's walk through the deduplication process. So we've identified our current record, which is the Arthur Weasley that we're in now, and the potential duplicate that it's found of this Arthur Weasley. To start the merge process, right here we see the checkbox column. Click next to that, and now we have this merge option on grayed out. and we can click on it. So what this will bring up is our current record that we're on. So the Arthur Weasley that we just said is going to be, the Arthur Weasley that we don't want to keep. And then the matched record, which is the other Arthur Weasley. So the duplicated Arthur Weasley. And what this is going to show us is potential information that is conflicting or different in the system. So we've got 2 different emails, we've got 2 different phone numbers, addresses, so on and so forth. And from here, what we can do is work through these records and decide what information we want to keep. So I'm going to keep this birth date, but I'm going to keep this email, this phone number. He doesn't have a t-shirt size here, so I'm just going to keep this t-shirt size. This address seems more correct. If I wanted to select all of them, I could select all fields in this section. Keep information. I can keep some information from one side and some information from the other. Didn't answer anything here. And select all of the whatever information that I want. Recommend, especially for the staff notes, if we made a comment in the staff notes, this is where we keep it. From a process standpoint, I like to put master contact in whatever information on the record that I know I'm going to keep. So if I know that this Arthur Weasley has all of the information that I want, when I'm going through the deduplication process, I'm looking only at this side of our selections for master contact. So I can pretty much guarantee to the best of my ability that most of this information on the right is what I want to keep. Timeline, you don't really have to change any of this. My suggestion is that you default to whatever the most recent date is. And then for things like username and email, we want to keep that information if they have an active portal account. And then once we're done, we will click OK. And one note here is that information that is exactly the same, you won't have to select from it. So it's only ever when you have conflicting information. So if these phone numbers were both the same, I wouldn't see it here and I wouldn't have to select which one. So the system kind of just tells you what information it should keep versus not keep. So here's an example. They're both applicants. I don't need to go in and select both applicants. Same thing with first name and last name. The names are correct. The names are the same. I don't have to go through and do that. All right, again, once I'm ready, I click OK. And I'll do a little thinking for merging records. Maybe a lot of thinking. Had a long day, Dynamics. Keep it up, buddy. Okay. So we ran into one of our issues that we have is that there is a conflict between a relationship of another contact. Let's exit out of this relationship here. And let's take a look at our other Arthur Weasley. Maybe. Let's take a look at their relationships. So there's some conflicting relationships here. So we can actually go ahead and save this and try this again. And we're just going to go ahead and click OK. We want to make sure we maintain those relationships that are happening. What is going on here? Oh, it's because I'm doing it across programs. Ignore me. Okay. Let's take George Weasley as a better example, and we'll redo the same process. So I'm going to say master. Maybe. change George Weasley. Merge. So that error that I ran into is simply it's from my view of things. It's because I have access to too much data. So we'll do it on a fresh account that I know are in the same program and don't have conflicting data. Same thing, we'll go through the merge process. And boom goes dynamite. We now have a single George Weasley that is an applicant and no longer active in the system. So what happens during the merge process is whatever information we decided to keep will merge over to the George Weasley that we want. So any related forms that both Georges had, it will move over. So any related contacts, it will remove over. And any notes or information that we decided to keep will move over. So really what the merge process does is taking information from one account and putting it on the other account and then getting rid of the old account. So now take the example of Ron Weasley, who we had a bunch of information on through data migration and all of his athlete forms, but then he created another portal account and went through the same process. We can merge those together and all of that information, both old and the stuff that he did on the portal side of things, are all merged into a single record. So we don't lose any of that information necessarily. It just gets condensed into the single Ron Weasley that we want to look at. With kind of just a couple tips and tricks with deduplication and merging accounts is don't do what I just did through kind of going through it quickly. You really try to understand your records before you're merging. I wasn't checking for program status and stuff like that, so it gave me those errors. But I really want to make sure you're taking what record you want to be the main record and making a conscious choice of who you want to be the master record or contact before you initiate the merge process. You can do that along the way through the merge process, but I think it's, from my perspective, a little bit easier to get a better sense of the record itself before merging. So that's kind of the long and short of deduplication. There are certainly some nuances to it that are case by case, and you may run into an instance where you're like, I'm not sure how to do this. My best recommendation is reach out about deduplication. I love how the deduplication process works, and I think it's very easy and straightforward. But there definitely are things that we want to make sure that we aren't, removing emails that we shouldn't be removing and stuff. So don't ever hesitate to reach out and ask questions about dedupe. Happy to do more focus training and work looking at true live data, which a lot of these test accounts, it's just not going to give you as good of a insight into the fields that we merge together. So with that, I'm going to stop rambling. Thank you for watching and learning a little bit more about deduplication. Have a great rest of your day, night, morning, whatever it is, wherever you are. Take care.